Have you ever wondered why the loudest scream in the room is often the one that never leaves the throat? In our modern era, an age where every heartbeat is digitized and every passing whim is broadcasted to the masses, the absolute crushing absence of sound has become the most lethal weapon in the interpersonal arsenal. We have been conditioned by social slogans to believe that silence is violence in the grand moral theater of justice. But let us strip away the altruism and look at the raw Machiavellian machinery humming underneath the surface. To withhold a word is to withhold the very lifeblood of social validation. To refuse a response is to systematically deconstruct the other person's sense of reality. You aren't just being quiet, you are oxygen depriving their ego, and the results are as spectacular as they are psychologically devastating. Imagine the subject of our study, a frantic 2D animated avatar of modern anxiety, clutching a smartphone like a holy relic. He watches the screen with the intensity of a bomb technician, waiting for the blue check marks to transform into a bridge of connection. But the bridge never comes. Instead, there is only the void. To the human brain, silence is not a neutral state. It is a psychological vacuum, and nature, especially human nature, abhors a vacuum. When you stop speaking, the other person's mind becomes a high-output factory of neurosis, working triple shifts to fill the empty space you've created. They aren't just waiting for a text, they are conducting a forensic autopsy of every interaction they've ever had with you. They are digging through the digital graveyard of your shared history, looking for the glitch in the matrix that led to this quiet apocalypse. By doing absolutely nothing, you have forced them into a state of involuntary self-interrogation. You have effectively outsourced the labor of their own psychological torture to their own subconscious, and the best part is, you didn't have to lift a finger. Power, as the Florentine master Machiavelli would whisper from the shadows of history, flows toward the person who can contain themselves. The one who explains, the one who justifies, the one who sends the 3-paragraph-long explanation of their feelings, that is the person who is bleeding out on the battlefield. When you speak, you provide data. You reveal your boundaries, your triggers, your vulnerabilities, and your desperate need to be understood. But when you are silent, you are a black box. You are an unmapped territory. You have seized the frame by simply refusing to step into the picture. Think about the satirical beauty of this dynamic. They are performing a grand emotional monologue for an audience that has already left the theater and gone to get a sandwich. They send a barrage of grievances. You send a blank space. They shout their insecurities into the abyss, and the abyss, which happens to be you, simply blinks. You are practicing a perverse form of stoic apatheia, a total refusal to be moved by the chaotic passions of a person who no longer has the clearance to access your inner sanctum.
You must realize that the silent treatment is the ultimate hierarchy settler. In the animal kingdom, the alpha doesn't bark at every passing squirrel. It stares with a cold, unblinking indifference. When you choose silence, you are sending a meta-message that is far more insulting than any slur or shout. You are saying, your words do not possess enough weight to move my tongue. Your presence does not merit the energy required to formulate a syllable. It is a digital execution by way of neglect. While they are spiraling into a vortex of what-ifs and how-dares, you are reclaimed as the sovereign of your own time. You are the architect of a fortress they cannot breach because there is no door to knock on. The silence is a mirror, and when you refuse to provide a reflection for their ego, they are forced to look at their own internal ugliness. They realize, perhaps for the first time, that their sense of self-worth was a parasitic organism that required your attention to survive, and you have just cut off the host. Are you brave enough to be the ghost in their machine, or are you so addicted to the sound of your own voice, so desperate to win the argument with logic and reason, that you'll keep feeding the fire until you both burn down? The master knows that the argument is won the moment you stop participating in it. The silence isn't a retreat, it's a strategic encirclement. You are surrounding their sanity with a wall of quiet, and sooner or later their own frantic imagination will force a surrender. You are using the wisdom of Seneca to realize that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Only this time, you are the one curating the silence that triggers their imagination. It is a ruthless efficiency of the soul. You are not just ending a conversation, you are establishing a new world order where your peace is the capital and their noise is a bankrupt currency. Welcome to the quietest war you will ever win, where the only casualty is their unearned sense of importance.
In the 2D vector landscape of our digital existence, the most terrifying sight is not a barrage of insults, but the cold, unblinking eyes of the read receipt. When those two blue check marks appear and are followed by an absolute stony stillness, you have initiated a psychological sequence known as the Zeigarnik Effect. The human brain is hardwired to seek completion. It hungers for the end of the narrative, the closing of the loop. By withholding the final word, you have turned yourself into an unfinished symphony that plays on a loop in the back of their mind day and night. You have effectively hijacked their cognitive resources. While you are out in the world, perhaps enjoying a silent walk or focusing on your own empire, they are trapped in a mental prison of their own making, frantically trying to solve the riddle of your quietude. They're looking for a why where there is only a nothing. You must recognize that most people are addicted to the negotiation of reality. They believe that if they can just explain themselves one more time, if they can just find the right combination of words, they can regain control over how you perceive them. But when you refuse to engage, you are denying them the trial they so desperately want to attend. You are both the judge and the jury, and you have already moved on to the next case without even bothering to read the verdict aloud. This is the ultimate subversion of the modern social contract. We are told we owe everyone an explanation, a closure talk, a gentle exit. But who wrote those rules? The very people who want to keep you tethered to their drama. Machiavelli would laugh at the idea of closure. Closure is a gift you give to the weak so they can stop bothering you. True power is leaving the door open and walking away while the other person is still waiting for you to come inside. Look at the satirical absurdity of the frantic follow-up. We've all seen the character in this animation, the one who sends a "hey" followed 2 hours later by a "guess you're busy," followed 4 hours later by a full-blown manifesto on the decline of human empathy. Each message they send is a confession of their own powerlessness. They are screaming at a wall, hoping the wall will apologize for being solid. You are the wall. You are the immovable object against which their desperate waves of validation are breaking. By remaining silent, you are practicing a high-level form of emotional austerity. You are the central bank of your own attention, and you have just decided that the inflation of their ego is no longer worth the investment of your breath. You are witnessing the death of the social self. Without your response, their identity in relation to you begins to wither and die, and for a person built on external approval, this feels like a literal disappearance.
Stop for a moment and consider the stoic brilliance of this stance. Epictetus taught that we should only concern ourselves with what is within our control. You cannot control how they interpret your silence, nor should you care. What you can control is the boundary of your own peace. When you are provoked, the natural, low-order response is to bark back, but the high-order response, the Machiavellian response, is to realize that the most devastating answer to a provocation is to act as if it never happened. To be unbothered is to be unconquerable. If they cannot get a reaction out of you, they have no leverage. You are a ghost that cannot be grabbed, a shadow that cannot be stabbed. You are forcing them to confront the most painful truth of all, that they are simply not important enough to warrant an outburst. Your silence is the metric of their irrelevance. This isn't just about being mean, it's about the preservation of your sovereign energy. Every time you enter a circular argument, every time you reply to a baiting comment, you are leaking your life force into a gutter. You are allowing someone else to dictate the tempo of your heart. Why would you give that power away for free? You are a practitioner of the quiet war. In this war, there are no explosions, only the slow, steady cooling of a once heated dynamic. You are the frost that moves across the glass, beautiful and indifferent. And as they tap on that glass, trying to find a way back into your warmth, they will realize that the silence isn't just the lack of sound, it is a presence. It is the presence of a person who has finally learned to value their own stillness more than the noise of the crowd. You are not hiding. You are simply no longer participating in a game that was designed to make you lose.
The final stage of this silent conquest is not the destruction of the other, but the absolute liberation of the self. Observe the satirical climax of the digital age, a person sitting in a room illuminated by the cold blue light of a screen, vibrating with a rage they cannot articulate because there is no one on the other end to receive it. In the 2D vector-animated world of their mind, they're throwing chairs, screaming into microphones, and demanding justice. But in the physical world, there is only a quiet room and the sound of your absence. You have successfully transitioned from being a participant in their drama to being the very stage upon which their ego collapses. But choosing silence, you have performed a radical act of psychological surgery. You have removed the tether that allowed them to drain your energy. You must realize that the last word is a trap designed for those who still crave the approval of their enemies. To want the last word is to admit that the other person's opinion still has the power to wound you. But the Machiavellian master understands that the true last word is the one that is never spoken. It is the silence that follows the final departure. It is the decision to stop being a validation vending machine where others can simply press a button and receive a predictable reaction of anger, guilt, or explanation. When you stop providing the reaction, the machine breaks. You are no longer a character in their poorly written script. You have stepped off the page, walked out of the ink, and become the author of a completely different story, one where they don't even merit a footnote. Look at the psychological freedom that blossoms in this void. While the ghosted party is trapped in a loop of rejection-sensitive dysphoria, you are practicing the high-order art of self-possession. You have reclaimed the thousands of hours and millions of neural firings that were once dedicated to the management of their emotions. This is the monk mode of social interaction. It is the realization that your internal citadel, as Marcus Aurelius described it, is only as strong as the gates you keep closed. By keeping the gate of silence shut, you are allowing the internal noise of your own insecurities to settle. You are finally hearing the sound of your own ambition, your own worth, and your own peace, undistorted by the static of a toxic dynamic.
There is a dark, humorous irony in the way the world views this. They will call you cold, but you are simply regulated. They will call you cruel, but you are simply complete. You are witnessing the death of your social avatar, that people-pleasing version of you that was addicted to being understood. Let that version die. Let it be buried in the silence you have created. In its place, a sovereign individual is rising, one who understands that human connection is a privilege, not a right, and that those who abuse the privilege lose the access. You are no longer a victim of manipulation. You are the master of anti-manipulation. You have learned that the most effective way to win a game of emotional chess is to simply stand up and walk away from the table. As the silence stretches into weeks and months, the torture you have inflicted on them, the torture of self-reflection, is no longer your concern. Whether they grow from the experience or wither in their own bitterness is irrelevant to your journey. You have achieved the ultimate stoic detachment, the ability to exist in the same world as your detractors without being touched by their orbit. You are a ghost, not because you are dead, but because you have become a spirit that can no longer be contained by the shallow expectations of others. You are reborn in the quiet. You are vibrant in the stillness. You are, for the first time in your life, truly and magnificently alone. And you have discovered that being alone is where your greatest power has been hiding all along. You have turned the violence of silence into the peace of the sovereign. The frantic pixels of your old life have settled into a high-definition image of clarity. You no longer need to scream to be heard. You only need to be silent to be felt. You have mastered the Machiavellian art of the void, and in doing so, you have found the only thing that truly matters, the unshakable, quiet certainty of your own soul. You have left the theater, the lights have dimmed, and for the first time, you are the only one left in the room who matters. The most devastating reply you can ever give is the one they have to invent for themselves.